Hello, this is in regards to my future great-grandchildren. My name is John Gillooly. Was born and raised in Ireland, outside of a little village called Drumlish, County Longford. Two wonderful parents, my mother and father, great people. On a farm, small farm, but enough for us. We had cattle and cows and pigs and ducks and turkeys and chickens, geese. So there was no scarcity of food, but you had to work for it. It didn't just arrive on the table. I was born in 1942, and the little village had a national school that I went to, and a Catholic church. My family were Catholics and practicing Catholics like I am today. Every night saying the rosary, and wonderful memories of my parents. And I had 3 brothers and 1 sister. There was 5 of us in the family. My sister was the oldest. Phyllis is her name, Philomena. And my older brother is Paddy. And my next brother to me is Michael, who has since passed on. He was a mute, didn't talk or hear. He died when he was 50 years of age. And at his service in the church, the priest asked for a moment of silence for a man that was silent for 50 years. He was buried on Christmas Day, 1996. My father was also a cattle trader, buying and selling cattle, and during the week we'd be buying cattle locally also, and on Saturday was market day in the town of Longford. He always had customers. I used to walk the cattle into the market on Saturday. I never had to walk home with them. He always sold them. People would always deal with him because he was considered a very honest and kept good quality. And I used to travel to these fairs, which I loved. That's where my travel bug been part of my life. Traveling to different counties, sometimes staying overnight the night before the fair, down in Cork and Kerry, which was about, back then, maybe about 6 hours trip. Then when I was about 18, I went to England. The city I was in was Birmingham, England. And there was a lot of people from my locality I lived with, had a boarding house there. And I worked on construction. I was what they called back then a hod carrier for bricklayers, where you had a hod on your shoulders on the bricks, and you walk up the ladders and tip it over and back down again fast, and up and down all day. And then I went as a hod carrier for plasterers to plaster the walls, and that was also hard work. And the last place I lived in England was in a place called Ironbridge in the province of Shropshire. And I lived actually in a pub and had tippled a few, you know. And anyhow, nothing dramatic from my experience there. And then in 1962 I came to New York. I was living up in the Bronx in a boarding house with a bunch of other young Irish fellas like myself. It was just before my 20th birthday. I got a job with the New York Telephone Company. I had different jobs within the company, including truck driving, delivering supplies, and then I was a technician inside in the offices where the wires all were connected. And then I became an installer. That was my career with the phone company. In 1993, I retired. I bought an around the world ticket. It was good for 1 year travel. First place was in the Philippines, and then I went to Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, Bali, which is part of Indonesia, to Darwin, Australia, and to Sydney and Melbourne. I came back to New York then. My daughter Tracy was giving birth to Amber. And that was in 1993. That would be November 22. See, I don't forget. I give you the important stuff. The other stuff doesn't mean nothing. This Tracy, at this time, for this documentary or whatever you call it, is for her children. That's what this documentary is going to be about. It's really for their children. From there then, my life has been, I lived at that time over in Belrose, New York, 244th Street on 86th Avenue. Lovely neighborhood. Great memories, never had a problem there. So I've been traveling pretty much since 1993. We are now in 2026. So I've had a lot of travel miles behind me over the years. I went to South America, mostly all the countries in South America I've been to. Then to Brazil, Central America, Mexico, and North Africa, Morocco, Egypt.
What made you want to travel?
Just part of my nature. Like I wanted to travel when I was in Ireland, going to the fair, seeing different places. And then Europe. I've traveled most of Europe. Western Europe and Eastern Europe. And Southeast Asia, Philippines, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, China,
Mongolia?
and
Mongolia?
Mongolia.
Yeah.
That's it.
What do you bring with you when you travel?
I just carry-on bag. Nothing more than that. Oh, well, I have the iPad, which I consider a phone, you know. I have a lot of friends. I don't drink, I don't smoke. I'm 83 years of age. I've had some slight medical issues along my way in life that most people at my age would have. I feel good mentally, spiritually, physically, in that order. And my life at 83 years of age is probably as good a part of my life that I've had all the ways back. That's how I feel personally. A lot of people probably wouldn't feel that way. And I have a good relationship with my God, which is very important to me. I love going to church. I also say the rosary every day on the computer. It's a big part of my day. And I pray for people. I can't say there's anybody on earth that I have any hatred towards. I'm supposed to love my neighbour as myself, and I know that can be hard at times. But if I have an issue with somebody that I have a negative feeling towards, I pray for them. And if it's something big that I might need to do, pray for forgiveness for them. Because I don't want to lose sleep over somebody else's whatever. I'm a very positive person.
Are you ready for some questions?
Well, if it's not already mentioned, I can't imagine what you would want to know in reference to the future great-grandchildren. Go ahead, see what it is.
If you could go back and speak to the young Irishman stepping off the boat in New York, what would you tell him?
You know, getting a job was the biggest thing, and a place to live. Well, I stayed with an aunt of mine. She's the one who sponsored me to the country, my Aunt Mary. I had more relatives in the US than I had in Ireland. I had 3 aunts and 2 uncles, and a sister, and cousins. I was automatically, as I did when I went to England, you know, the first thing I need to do is get a place to live and to rent. There was nobody sitting there waiting for me with handing me money. I mean, automatically, the first job I had in England, because I just wanted to get any job, was a job that nobody would be applying for. Unloading trucks of cement with cement bags all day off of trucks. Right away, wherever I've been, first thing is I want a roof over my head and food in my stomach. You know, I knew about these fellas from home with me that had a place in Birmingham. But then when I got here, friends of my sister, who was actually from home with me also, knew people that stayed in this boarding house or whatever. So there was about 24 of us in that boarding house. The woman cooked 2 turkeys every day, and on Friday we got fish, because that time the church was fish on Friday, no meat. Then I met up with some other fellas. I moved to Astoria, and I lived with these fellas from Donegal. And I'm still friends with, one of them is still alive, the same age as myself, Paddy Donaher, back in Ireland. He moved back there with his family. I live with two brothers from Monaghan, County Monaghan.
Do you see yourself going back to Ireland?
Not really, not at this stage in my life, because I'm away too long,
Yeah.
you know. And my life is, as you know, is travel anyhow. So I go to Ireland, you know, usually once a year, and see my family, which I look forward to. I got married 1968 to Rosalie Colabella. We had 3 children: Daniel Gillooly, my son, Danny, Lisa Gillooly, and Tracy Gillooly is the youngest. And it's her daughter, Amber, that will be supplying the great-grandchildren.
How did you and Rosalie meet?
We met at an Irish dance over in Woodside, New York. She came there with some Irish girls that she worked with at the airport. And anyhow, then from there we got married, like I say, had 3 children that I mentioned. And went our separate ways after 13 years. She went to Arizona and I was still here in New York with my 3 children. Yeah. And yeah, my life, you know, I've had ups and downs in my life, but, you know, God has always been with me, you know. I look back in my life, I have nothing to be peed off about. Life has been good to me. Like I say, with some ups and downs, but that's normal. People go through different situations in their lives, and the thing is to be as positive as you can be about it. It's easy being positive when all these things are behind you. You know, when you're going through them, they're not that simple.
How much was the rent in the Bronx back in the day?
Oh yeah. No, I was making 49 and I was paying 25.
Per week for the
Yeah.
boarding. Okay.
But later on, when I was living with these others in a private apartment, you know, over in Astoria, we were paying $72 a month divided by 3, which was $24 a month each, and having your own space, more or less.
You
Well,
had your own bedroom?
yeah, from what I remember, because to be 2 bedrooms and the 2 brothers, I would have been probably 2 beds there or whatever. I don't remember if it was 3 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms.
How do you
But-
feel about, because you've seen like no technology to technology that have been made since
Well,
you were born.
For me, because of my travels, it's been a positive, you know, in regards to my travel stuff, booking hotels or even,
Navigating.
yeah, even going back where I depended mostly on the Lonely Planet books for booking hotels.
What was
Not really booking them, I mean, going to, that's how I traveled originally.
what would you do?
It's called the Lonely Planet book.
Oh.
I used to have a stack of them in the house that I put out because different countries. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
The Lonely Planet? Yeah. Steve Reeves is the guy that,
Yeah, I know the story.
yeah. So that was my travel information.
One question.
Yeah.
How did your parents react when you say, I'm moving to America?
Oh no, there was no reaction. At the time I was in England when I was planning to move to Australia. And my aunt or whatever in the US must have heard about it because I don't think I was 18 at the time, but anyhow, I came back from England to Ireland, and it wasn't an issue because growing up in Ireland, particularly the area in Ireland that I grew up, if there was 10 children in the family, 9 of them would be leaving the country. There was one stayed behind on the farm because there's just enough for one family. So immigration was just as natural as within the Irish back then. There's 70 million people claim to be Irish in the world. There's only 4.5 million in Ireland. Even Argentina. A lot of people from my area moved to Argentina because there was nothing at that time. Most countries were poor. Even the US was poor. You know, that was the common thing probably between Italians and Irish, or where they mixed, because that time you had Italian communities and Irish communities, but the Irish speaking English weren't tied in to a community, where the Italians, you know, depended on their community, you know, with the language, where the Irish had no problem moving anywhere. That was a big thing with the Irish. They could go wherever they wanted, and they weren't dependent on the community.
Did a lot of places speak English at the time?
Here in the US?
But outside of that, when you were traveling, did you find...
Not necessarily, but I've never think about people say to me, well, do you speak the language?
Yeah.
I never even bother with that. Even when I travel in China, I would go into a restaurant or something and I'd look at what people were eating on their plate. I don't mean sticking my head in there, but glancing at it and seeing something that might have appealed to me.
Yeah.
I'm only using the China as an example, but that's basically it.
Yeah.
I mean, the most I ever know in a language is maybe, hello, how are you, thank you, please, something like that. Very, very basic.
Yeah.
But now other people would be intimidated about going someplace that was non-English speaking place, but I never give any thought to that. Yeah.
And what was your day like when you first started working? I remember you mentioned you would go down to Wall Street.
Yeah, well, that was later on, yeah. Oh yeah, I worked independently. I'd be out, I could be in a building like whatever, the stock exchange. It was all around the stock market anyhow. It was a good area to work in. And I could work, make my own overtime type of thing, you know, which was a big benefit. And I often worked like 4 hours a day overtime, which I needed, you know, when the family came along and bought a house within. I mean, I wasn't making much money up until about 1967. The other money was basically practically nothing. I was as well off being hidden away, maybe in a jail cell. I'd be making as much, or have as much at the end of the week, whatever. But I always managed, as everybody else was on the same rate, pretty much, depending on what.
There was a moment you made the jump when you
Oh, it was.
became an installer. You made.
Oh yeah, that was a big jump. But even becoming a truck driver for the company, that was also a jump for me. And these jobs came along pretty fast. That was the thing about the phone company, was opportunities. You know, even people used to say to me sometimes, you know, in these buildings, they'd see me doing these installations and they'd wonder how I had that job, you know, coming from Ireland. Sometimes I joke with them and I'd say, well, they hired me over in Ireland, you know. That would piss them off, a kind of, you know. You mean I had to go to Ireland for somebody to do this job? You know, because it was considered a decent job.
Yeah.
Still is, you know. But
Is it still called the same? The new
I mean, it was probably about 1967 where financially it was the job I was in, which was in the central office doing the wiring inside, where the pay scale was getting to where I could put away some money. And in 1970, that time I bought the house out in Belrose, and there was well, Danny was born, and Tracy or Lisa was born in 1970. So we left the apartment, which was over there on Queens Boulevard, beside where Tracy works. It was like a
Okay,
building
yeah.
next door. Maybe you've been there, because the grandparents eventually wound up staying there.
Yeah.
But anyhow,
And that's how you knew Chris.
yeah. And so I was fit to even having a family, put a decent down payment on a house in 1970. And, you know, the job I was in then was the installations. And I was making decent money, and I could work all the overtime I nearly wanted to.
Crazy.
You know, even on Saturday, you know. And because the phone company, a rich company, you know, they had no competition then. Back then it was one company in the whole USA. AT&T was the parent company. So being in that position was a great position. Even if I was offered something greater than that as far as management, I would be losing money. I made more money than the managers, but of course they weren't putting in the hours I was putting in, or they didn't have the choice. Yeah.
But as an installer,
Yeah, I had,
just so much.
in that particular department I was in, not just being an installer, I was in what they call special services. It was mostly to do with the stock exchange and all them brokerage houses. Yeah.
But
So I was very fortunate in that as well. Everything came, when I needed it, everything came my way, but that's only in looking back. When you're in that position doesn't mean that you feel, well, I got it made now the rest of my life, it's going this way.
But then, my understanding is you ended up getting injured, and that's when
Oh yeah, I went on disability, yeah.
what happened.
I was lifting heavy equipment which wasn't part of my job. These big batteries that they used.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the ones you see in a car. There were big batteries, and it's my back, the spine. I don't remember all the details. So anyhow, that was the end of my working career. I wound up with this spinal fusion. I was in a body cast for about 3 months, you know, from here up to here, my chest. And Lord of Mercy, and the man that operated on me, Dr. Peter Langan, Lord of Mercy on him, he was great, you know. But anyhow, my time still continued with the company. So in 1993, when I retired, the company were making an offer. You didn't have to leave the company. I was still considered an employee on disability. And they were making an offer within what I was doing for people to leave, and they were giving you an incentive to leave. So the incentive, even though my time was still progressing when I was on disability within the company, so I was very fortunate in all these areas.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with my genius. I mean, they were just part of the thing. And so I took it anyhow because the incentive was enough, not meaning that you got a bundle of money, which wouldn't have been good anyhow because you could go through it. But I wouldn't have gone through it, but anyhow, somebody else might have. So it was enough for me to support at this time. Yeah, 1993, that's when I got all this.
Around the world.
I took the retirement benefit that they give, and that's when I bought the round the world ticket.
Smart.
Great.
European.
They're great.
Did you go along with the Italians back in New York?
Oh, yeah. Did I go along with them? Well, not necessarily that I had. On the job, yeah. There was Italians on the job, yeah. It was a bit of everything. There was some blacks, there was Puerto Ricans, you know. But the Irish and the Italians, because of their economics also would be similar. You know, I'm talking about Italians from Italy and Irish from Ireland. They would all be more or less in construction. So Italians would be more, well, the Irish would be mostly carpenters. And the largest carpentry union in New York City, Manhattan, was known as 608 Carpenters Union. So they had all of Manhattan from around 60th Street all the way down to Wall Street. So most of them were in carpentry, but they also done some brickwork, but mostly Italians done the brickwork and the concrete work. But the neighborhoods, because of the religion, also to be in the same school system, the Irish and Italians, that was pretty common. You know, like the church, and the kids would be going to Catholic school. Yeah. So to be with the next generation, the ones born in the US, there would have been quite a lot of mix between Italians, marriage-wise. Yeah.
And Irish.
And Irish, that's what I mean, yeah.
So there will be Italians will marry Italians and...
It'd be like mostly, let's say the opposites attract each other. It'd be Italian men marrying Irish girls. I'm not saying it was 90%, maybe it was 3%, you know. And Irish Americans born in the US marrying, that would, you know, be meeting each other in school. It would be very common in certain neighborhoods. Yeah.
Do you have any funny memory from the farm in Ireland? Like childhood memories in the farm?
Oh yeah, like...
What was the day like? Waking up and...
Yeah, well, depending on what age you were at a different time, you done different things. It wasn't something I ever felt like I was being punished, I had to do this or I had to do that. You kind of knew at whatever age this would be in my head that certain things required us all to pitch in with whatever. It wasn't punishment, it was life. Whether it's milking the cows, you know, that didn't happen when I was 5 years of age, you know, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12, whatever. You know, putting in potatoes and cabbages and vegetables and what have you. You knew these things needed to be done. And I never recall anybody saying, you know, you're slacking or whatever. My parents were very easygoing parents. You know, I never heard my father say a curse word in his life. And my mother was fantastic in the house. She was, you know, always cooking, baking cakes.
What kind of cake?
There was on the fire, on an open fire.
Wow.
Yeah.
A cake on open fire?
Huh?
A cake on the open fire?
No, but
Oh,
what you'd have is, you take the coals
yeah,
from the, when they're kind of heated up,
yeah.
and they would be underneath the stove. Not a stove, I mean, whatever you call it, for baking the cake.
Okay.
And you'd have coals on the lid as well, so it would be evenly come out. And she probably baked 4 of them a day.
Wow.
And that bread was fantastic. Irish soda bread. Yeah, with butter. We made our own butter also, you know, with a churn,
Yeah.
where you pound up and down the original one. And then they got a modern one that supposedly you just turn it like this.
And it did it.
Because, you know, they have a place where sometimes, I don't know if you ever went to it when you were out there with Lisa, where it's an apple orchard, where people go certain times of the year,
Yeah.
but they have a lot of the old machinery or whatever, or tools that people lived in the US with.
Yeah.
And this one that was a futuristic for us on the farm back in Ireland was this tumble thing. They didn't have the one before where you...
Yeah.
So I go back further in that. And my life growing up wouldn't have been any different than my grandfather's life. Things hadn't changed back then.
As drastically.
Oh, not...
As from like you to
Yeah. Well, it was mostly physical work. Like, we didn't have a tractor in my time on the farm. It was, well, we had horse, you know, with ploughing. And, you know, we grew oats, which would be for your oatmeal.
you
And,
grew oats.
yeah, oh yeah, on the farm.
Wow.
And you cut it with a side. Yeah.
But you guys would grow pretty much everything you would need to survive.
Oh yeah, but you know, you bought things in the store, you know, maybe whatever, jams and, you know, other things, meat. Although at one time they used to have slaughter their own pigs
Uh,
and salt it, you know, because there was no refrigeration then.
really?
Yeah,
Would you dig
no, there
underground?
was never a refrigerator when I was growing up. There was no need for it.
Because you would just eat it right away?
Oh no, it'd be there for probably months.
Oh.
It'd take a while to eat a pig. I'm talking about a fully grown pig.
But it's just all like jerky at that point. Because you would salt it. None of it
It'd
would
be salted as preservation.
Yeah.
Salt was a preservation for the pig,
Yeah.
which would be different, which would do the same thing, I guess, as a refrigerator
Crazy.
back then. All right, adios, amigo. Ciao, ciao.
No, I mean, I think this was great.
Yeah,
Mike wants to say hi.
good morning, Johnny.
Yay, you did
We're
it.
proud of you.
Did well. Thank you for doing that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
That's my whole life story. I don't, it's
life
not something
story.
I go into, but anyhow,
Oh, here, yeah, take it.
yeah.
I know. It's...
Let's drink to that with a cup of McDonald's coffee.
Cheers. From Hawaii.